In today's lesson, we're going to be creating these moving neon lines and make them pass through letters. So let's get started. First, let's create a composition for our finished lines. I'm going to create one right here, call it final. And then we're going to make a composition again, call it line 1. Bring line 1 into your final composition. Double click on line 1, and this is where we will create our line. You can actually go ahead and rename it into lines. So let's grab our pen tool and add a stroke color. Because I want my lines to be neon, I will go for really vibrant and bright colors such as this pink. You can go for any of these colors, just make sure that it's really bright and vibrant. That way it will look better when we make it neon. Hit OK, and we're going to start drawing our wavy line. Before that, I will hit down Command R or Control R to bring a horizontal ruler, which will determine where my ground is. Start drawing your line from outside of your composition frame. So somewhere around here, make a point. I'm going to match it with our ground. And I'm just going to create some really nice waves. They don't have to be identical, so just click and drag to make curves and finish off your waves. Once again, we want to finish it outside of the composition. And you can work with the handles to make your curves perfect. I'm going to rename this to pink line. Let's also color code our layers so that it's easier to work with. So now we're going to add a trim path animation. Just open up your pink line layer, go to Add, Trim Paths, open this up, make a keyframe for start, move to the end, and turn it to 100. So now we're going to get a really simple animation that goes in like this. I think I'll want mine from the opposite direction. 0% for end, make a keyframe, and then turn it to 100. So we're going to get a really slow movement from the left to the right. If you want it to be faster, you can just drag this guy in closer. But I'm going to leave mine like this because I want it to go through the text, and I will also make other lines, so the speed of this won't be that noticeable. Close this guy off, and we're going to duplicate this. Let's make it green. Change the color of the stroke to green as well. Grab your pen tool and we can kind of alter the lines. I'm going to skip through here, make them look a little different. So this is my green line. Once it finishes, get something like this. I will also grab another line. So let me first rename this green line. Duplicate this one more time, make it orange. Grab a nice and vibrant color and maybe bring this sky from above. Call this orange line. So now at the end of our frame, we have these 3 lines. I'm going to grab my orange line and kind of alter the movements. So this is the end frame for my lines. As you can see, nothing goes beyond my floor, which is perfect. Now we're going to pre-compose each of these lines. And this way we will have an easier time when applying the glow effect. Type in glow in the effects and presets. Grab it and place it right on top of your first line. So the options we're going to use is color channel. Make sure glow is based on that. For your threshold, we're going to increase it, make it more than 60%. Radius, we want to increase this as well. We can go for 60. And finally, the intensity, we'd want to go for a larger number. Let's try 3.5. So right now when I zoom in, we have made our line glow. This was before, this is after. but the glow is just not enough. So we're going to duplicate this glow layer, Command D, and on glow 2, we're going to do a few different settings. So threshold, we want to reduce that quite a bit, maybe around 15%. For the radius, we want to increase it even more so we get a softer look. Because 200 will do. And finally, we want to increase the intensity to about 10. So the second glow is really going to help us get that neon look, which is not possible if you don't have the first glow effect. So these two need to go above each other in order to get something like this. Now select both of these glow effects, Command C, and paste it into each of these lines. So green line and pink line. Looking good, we got really nice glowing lines. You can change the position if you want the green one to be on top. Can achieve that by simply moving these guys around. So now that we have our lines, we're going to maybe offset some of them so they don't all start at the same time. You can also flip these guys. Go to Transform, Flip Horizontal, and this way this line will show up from the other side. Just make sure that they meet the ground that you made, so nothing goes beyond this because we want to create a reflection later. I'm also going to offset orange and have them come at different times. I don't want every line starting from the same area. So now we get something like this. First the pink line shows up, and then the green. And finally, the orange. Let's hit fit. And now we're going to create a 3D camera. So right click in the box right here, new camera. Make sure it's a 2-node camera and then hit OK. Turn your layers into 3D. And we're just going to duplicate our line layers. If you're seeing something like this, it's because you're on Cinema 4D. Classic 3D, and you're going to get them back. So now duplicate all of these guys, Command D, and bring them below your original layers. I'm going to turn all of them yellow. So yellow is our reflections. The rest of the colors are for the original lines. I'm going to turn the camera layer into purple. Grab all of your reflection layers, and we're going to hit R on our keyboard. X rotation to bring them down around 95 degrees, kind of flat them out like this. Then we're going to hit P on our keyboard and bring them down until they meet the ground that we made. We want to connect the bottom of the reflection with the bottom of the original layer. And I think our rotation is too much. I'm going to go for positive 100%, then hit S on your keyboard and kind of stretch this out so they meet the bottom of your work. So the purple line is all good. I'm going to grab the green line and stretch it so it meets the actual lines. If you go to your last frame, it will be easier to tell. Grab your orange line, and I think we're good with orange. Maybe stretch it out like this. So now our reflections are looking good. Hit U to close off all the properties. And now what we want to do is to get rid of these bits where we can see the lines getting cut off. So hit P on your camera layer and use position Z to zoom in towards your work and therefore hiding those rough edges. Looking good. Now let's make our reflection look more like a reflection. Right now it's way too intense and we just simply need to grab all of our reflection layers, hit T and reduce the opacity to around 50%. Looking good. Another thing that we need to do is to blur the reflection so that it's not as sharp as the main lines are. So grab camera and open up the camera options. Scroll down to aperture and we're going to increase this quite a lot, maybe around 500. There we go. And down to the blur level, we're going to increase this as well. So maybe 300. You can see that it's looking quite blurry now. You can try more than 300. See what gives us the best result. I think that's too much. Maybe 300 was good. And I'm going to change my iris shape into a different one so that it looks more natural. Now the problem is that we've blurred out the reflection, but our main line also looks quite blurry. To avoid that, we're going to have to work with our focus distance. So come to focus distance. We're going to add to focus distance until we have a sharp line. There we go. So I made my focus distance 1809 pixels. I also increased my aperture to 600. And now our lines are pretty sharp. But as you can see, the reflection remains blurry. So that's why we need a camera in order to get a better result. So the reason why this is happening is because we have used an actual camera to get a more natural blur effect. And just like a real camera, we set our aperture, which is how open the lens is. We are working with the focus distance, which I'll show you what it looks like in a second. And of course, the blur level, which indicates how blurry these stuff become when they're moving further away towards the camera. So if we used a normal Gaussian blur effect, we would be blurring everything at the same rate, and that wouldn't look that natural. So that's why we use a camera layer when we want a more realistic blur effect. So let me just turn off all of my reflection layers, and I will show you what the focus distance does. Go to 2 view and open up focus distance. So right over here, you can see that there's this line, which I can increase by moving this guy. So when we move this past our composition, we're going to get a really blurry effect because the camera is focused on whatever's here. But when we move it backwards towards our composition, we're going to focus on the lines itself. So this white line in the center is our composition. And if we wanted to be focused on that, we would have to bring it close to that line. I'm going to put it back to what I had before. So there are my reflections. You can see that the focus distance is not exactly set on the reflection bottom. And that's how we're getting this effect where the tip is blurred out and the part where it comes in contact with the original line is rather sharp. So whether it's a real video or an animation, camera layers can really help you get a more natural blur effect. Now let's go back, close this off, go back to one view. So we're done with our lines and the reflections. In the next lesson, we're going to add in a text and have these lines kind of move through the letters. So I will see you guys in the next part of this lesson.